had every technical difficulty today, but we're not giving up.
You're still trying to record the podcast.
I think the title of this episode is going to be like, Melissa and Brianna had problems. I'll workshop that a bit. But anyway,
Welcome to Hypercast.
welcome to Hypercast. It's been a rough day. It's been a rough week. I feel like I've tried to fit at least 3 weeks worth of work in the last 4 days. And
How's your burnout doing?
I'm doing okay, considering.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
How's your self-care doing?
Oh, that's pretty but
Burnout is coming. It's coming for you.
every time I feel like I'm right up against the line, I tried really hard to do things for myself that like make me back off. I'll make sure I get a really good night's sleep or eat really good food. Sometimes I just lay on the floor because I feel like I need to be grounded.
Floor time is important.
Yeah. Sometimes if I sleep too long, it's too much. So if I sleep 8 hours, that's too much for me. I feel groggy, but if I sleep like 6 hours, I'm like, cool.
You are a rare woman because all of those sleep numbers are based on men. So that 6 to 8 hours of sleep that an adult needs is an adult male. Women actually need an hour more. So it's 9 to 10 is the recommended for women. But that's not always the case. There are people in between, and you clearly seem to be one of the people who sleeps less, which is really fascinating because I'm one of the people who sleeps more. Sleep stuff is really interesting to me because, like, obviously with ADHD, we have delayed sleep phase disorder.
Yeah.
Like, very commonly, issues with insomnia, like falling asleep, staying asleep, waking up too early. There's 3 types of insomnia. There's the studies coming out that there are people who are like sleep phased, they do better in the morning, and there are people who are sleep phased and they do better in the evening. All this stuff is super fascinating to me because society has penalized like night owls. Why is it inherently lazy to wake up at 10 and work until 8 or 9? Oh, you're so amazing that you wake up at 4 in the morning and work out and you're in bed by 6.
My most productive hours, I think, are between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m.
I'm not quite that bad. Mine are like, well, bad. Look at me using the language. Those are not my hours, and there's nothing wrong with those hours. It's ingrained too deeply in me. I would say 5 till 10 p.m. It's like my hours of highest productivity.
I was reading something in passing, and maybe I'm wrong, that the time blindness has something to do with circadian rhythm.
That's really interesting. So time blindness somehow impacts the circadian rhythm. I can see it because all those melatonin solutions and those like sunlight alarm clocks where it slowly wakes you up with the power of the sun, because that's what our bodies adjust to. Our bodies adjust to the sun. That's how the farmers did it back in the old time. Like, they didn't have clocks or whatever. Like, the sun would rise, they'd wake up, they'd work, the sun would set, they'd go to bed because they needed sunlight to work. But now with all of this electricity and our time blindness and having the lights on all the time, we could be actively delaying our body's preparation to go to sleep because our bodies will not start producing melatonin until it's dark. People with the structure and routines and the awareness of time, their bodies have that habit of, oh, it's 8 p.m., even though it's not dark yet, it's time to start producing that. And then the lights will go off and it's reinforced. Whereas with us, we're so variable, even in modern society, right? Like, if you go out for a movie or a late night dinner, it shifts your circadian rhythm and you feel extra groggy the next day.
How does like daylight savings time and the winter, that whole sad thing where
Oh my
you're depressed
God.
because you're not getting more sun? I get so overwhelmingly like just, oh, that's really descriptive language there. During the
I
winter,
love it. Okay, so seasonal affective disorder is the funniest thing to me because someone literally named the disease sad.
Sad.
Oh, you get sad in the winter?
Yeah.
Like, that's so funny. But yeah, no. Are we allowed to swear?
why
Okay.
not?
Daylight savings time. There are already time zones in the world. That's confusing enough. There's no need to switch them.
I know for my spouse, he goes to work in the dark and then he comes home in the dark in the winter. I don't know how he is not more depressed. Apparently I'm just carrying all the very vocalized depression during the winter. I hate it. There's the suggestion of lamps and stuff like that to maybe
Yeah,
help.
I've tried the sun lamps and they do help a little bit. Light therapy is a thing for seasonal affective disorder, and it actually does help because your body's circadian rhythm syncs to light and the natural cycles in your body. We're not plants, but we're close to plants.
Yeah.
We don't photosynthesize, but our body does produce more of certain chemicals during the day versus at night, which is why people go crazy. Have you seen the polar night things? They have a party
No.
because it's dark all day for 24
Yeah.
hours straight and they don't know when to sleep, and it actually creates this kind of temporary psychosis. It's so fascinating.
That's really
So
cool.
cool. I want to go try it. They have festivals and things, right? So it's basically I don't know how long it lasts, a week or something like that. A week-long party where no one sleeps, or if you do, you have to get blackout curtains and eye things. Can we
Okay.
talk about weather?
Weather. Talk about weather.
Okay, so where I am currently living, do you want to guess how many days of sunlight I have where I'm currently living?
260.
Okay, 333
Ooh.
days of sunlight out of 365.
I don't know how I feel about that.
The more sunlight people have, the less the population is depressed. For example, in the UK, where it rains all of the time, even though it's the winter, right? But it rains. They never have sun. It's cloudy. And they're generally higher rates of depression. The people tend to be a little bit grumpier, more closed off, whereas Canada has this reputation for being really friendly.
You are nicer than we are. Every Canadian I've ever met is so much nicer than almost every American I've met. I don't want to call it a stereotype, but
We'll take the stereotype. And if we're going to relate this back to ADHD, because we're still trying to record a podcast today, emotion regulation.
emotion regulation. How many times have I just been like, oh, I'm totally normal, but I'm not regulated at all, or I'm 2 seconds away from some big emotional shift? I don't want to say it's denial, but we're stuck in our bodies. Our definition of normal is from our perspective. We don't even know that there's anything wrong.
Yes, it can be distressing, but wrong implies that there is a right way. Because, like, our emotions are normal.
Yeah, but we can interrupt somebody else's day or plans without knowing or acknowledging it because we have not acknowledged ourselves.
So negatively impacting
Yes,
our daily lives. That's what makes it ADHD. That's
Yeah.
why it's a disability.
but we can have impact not just on ourselves, but people around us too.
Yeah. Because it sucks for us, right? Our emotions are normal, they're just bigger. So if something makes us mad, it makes us furious. If something makes us sad, it makes us depressed. It's just higher highs and lower lows, but it's not like we're reacting incorrectly to the stimuli. It's still the correct emotion for the stimuli. It's just bigger. But I can see what you mean. Like, when I get sad, I shut down. I'm not functional. And if I had things to do that day, or if my partner needed something from me, I can't accomplish that task because my body and mind and emotions are in such a heightened state, either overstimulation or understimulation.
Yeah.
I completely understand what you mean by it impacting your daily life.
And if I don't take the moment to pause and consider, like, when I feel off, I ask myself, how is it affecting me? And how is it affecting the people I'm around? I'm responsible for my loved ones, even if they can be responsible for themselves, but maybe even just being emotionally there for them is my responsibility. I can't be there or even be nice to them if I'm not checking in with myself and making sure I'm okay.
The other piece I wanted to add is, how could you know in advance? We're so bad at proprioception,
Mhm.
somatic mindfulness, knowing what's going on in our bodies, feeling what we're feeling before we're feeling it and it's too deep and we're already like how do you be prepared for it? And then the impact on yourself and other people. The 4 steps back plan is find ways to be aware of your emotions and the potential triggers or the shifts before it happens, because once you're in that moment, it just takes time to come out of it.
And I am convinced that once we're in the deepest part of dysregulation or overwhelm, there are signs long before we are in the midst of it. Part of it is figuring out what those signs are. Sometimes I'll realize I'm not breathing deeply or I'll hold my breath. That may be a sign that I'm not regulating right now. That's 2 or 3 steps before I'm in the midst of my
Yeah.
head spinning. I can't take anymore. I'm hitting a wall. Yeah.
Cycling back, the signs and symptoms of becoming emotionally dysregulated are often associated with self-care. The first thing that goes is the noticing, then it's the self-care. And now you're in a situation where you don't have any of your structure, like you're eating, you're sleeping, or whatever. So you're already at a disadvantage. And you've lost the ability to access your coping mechanisms because you are sleep deprived, hungry, don't have the right nutrients, haven't gone
Can we
outside.
stop for a second? Can we stop for a second here? Because that is important. That's like big light bulb over my head.
Are we pausing right now to take in this information?
Yes, we are taking this in because that thing you just said about when you're dysregulated, that you start losing your ability to actually reach for your coping mechanisms. That is like a big dang.
Say more.
I right now I'm just really freaking overwhelmed. You and I have been having this conversation, two ADHD experts aware that these things exist. But we get stuck in this cycle of really pushing up against burnout. At least we're both talking about it, so we're recognizing that is a possibility.
The first step is recognizing that there is stress in your life. We will default back to unhealthy coping mechanisms if that's our default is.
Ooh.
Yeah. The way to shift and make this better and avoid some of this emotional dysregulation, avoid some of the loss of access to coping mechanisms is to have the default, the what you rely on in the hardest times, the times of the highest stress, be a healthy coping mechanism rather than an unhealthy one.
The thing that you're hitting on here is that there are both negative and positive coping mechanisms. And I think that is a big ding.
Are you suggesting that we have to unlearn our unhealthy coping mechanisms?
We just were saying that like recognition is one of the first steps of anything here. Maybe it's recognizing that some of the things that we do over and over again may be a negative coping mechanism. Is it still serving us though?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have to, that's back to the reflection and the awareness piece of, is this still serving me?
Yeah.
Or now that I know more, can I change this? Is there something I can do?
This is really deep stuff.
It's a weird episode because we haven't explained the why yet because we're just discovering it ourselves. Shall I summarize now to see if we can pull this together?
A mid summary. Okay. Go for it.
We started with what happens when we don't get enough sleep. We talked a little bit about like how ADHD can impact sleep and then mostly just mood, weather.
This is an ADHD conversation come podcast episode.
Yes, that led to something.
Yes.
But how that relates to and why I think it's important, what we ended up talking about, which was emotional regulation and how to notice that you were losing access to your coping mechanisms and that things might be progressing towards burnout. How do you even notice that? Pick up on things like I'm not sleeping enough, I'm not eating enough, I'm not getting outside enough, and how important weather and sunshine and balance is to maintaining that emotion regulation so you don't end up in that state of like overstimulation, understimulation that leads to shutdown or burnout and can impact your life and the people's lives around you.
Burnout always, I don't know, I feel like every time I hit it, it steals so much time from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the other piece of this, which I get we
Hold on.
forward.
You're going to say that again in 2 seconds. If you've stuck with this so far, I know this is like a really messy episode. We get it. We're sitting here doing it. But if you want to support us continue to make content here on YouTube, hit the like button and subscribe.
On YouTube only? Wait, are you suggesting that people with ADHD tend to be more visual learners?
Some people really like the visual aspect, and some people like being able to listen while they do other things. We were talking about emotion regulation. They were talking about.
Don't get me off track. You're trying to get me back on track by getting me off track. I want to know more about this YouTube thing. So if people watch our YouTube videos and can subscribe then
ding the bell.
Like they get useful ADHD things and then more people will get to listen to us.
Yeah, the YouTube algorithm, the more people who like us and subscribe to us, the more people they spread our stuff to and they get the opportunity to join in, listen, and maybe become part of our community.
Subscribe to help us help you and to help us help others.
Yes.
I'm back on board now. So we were talking about emotion regulation. And
I was like, put a pin in that. Say that again.
We have ADHD. I don't know why you thought a pin would work.
We are proving right now that we have ADHD.
I think that was pretty evident from the first episode. This is maybe ADHD skill regression. That's a separate episode for sure.
I have a feeling I could polish this turd. I don't know about you. I'm in this zone of I feel like I can polish any turd. Part of me wants to think I'm delusional. But then the other part of me is, no, just flow with it. I have a ton of goals. But what if I only reach half of them? I've reached something if I've only reached half of them.
I love this attitude. This is like reframing to the max. Do you mind if I get on my soapbox for
I
1
love
minute?
your soapbox. I may edit your soapbox, but I love your soapbox.
Okay. The thing that I am trying to do with all of this is demonstrate to people with ADHD that they're not broken and that they're not wrong. And to do that is just a lot of reframing. So anytime we're able to reframe something, specifically you said, oh, I can only get half the things done. I got half the things done. Like the positive mindset and what was it? The secret was a thing for a bit. It's a little wishy-woo, but like neuroplasticity wise in the brain, if you practice positive thoughts, those are the channels that become default in your brain. As we were talking about earlier, it all connects. If you have that positive mindset of, I got half the stuff done, that's amazing, versus, oh my God, I only got half the stuff done, your brain will default to whatever one is practice. That's why practice makes perfect. So if
Yeah.
you practice, I got stuff done, I'm amazing, I got half the things done, your brain is going to default that direction. And that's what I want to bring to the ADHD community of, I'm not broken, my way of doing things isn't wrong. Feel a sense of pride in your accomplishments
Mhm.
and not just default to the negative, because you've heard me say this a bunch. Like, our brains have an even higher tendency than the neurotypicals to default to the negative as a coping mechanism. We're back. It's all circle.
It
It's an
is.
unhealthy coping
Yeah.
mechanism. It keeps us safe. It prevents us from making mistakes. It's like a danger safety thing. It works, but it doesn't make us happy, and it
Yeah.
doesn't keep us motivated to keep going.
And the opposite mentality of the thing I just said is me saying, I only got half of the things on my to-do list done. I'm a failure, right? I need to just
It
stop.
it doesn't make you feel motivated to do the rest of your to-do list,
Yeah.
right? You need that dopamine, that sense of reward, that sense of accomplishment that the neurotypicals get for free. We have to work on it,
Yeah.
and it's so important. And it helps with emotion regulation. Oh, it's all full circle.
I have a feeling this is going to be one of our best episodes. We are showing some authentic parts of ourselves.
The people, they love authenticity.
The people freaking love authenticity.
I love authenticity. I get very upset when people are not true to themselves. I think it's a part of ADHD justice or something. Like, we just, like, neurodivergent people, autistic individuals, we have this ability, like, bullshit meters. Like, we
Yeah.
just know when someone is not being truthful. It actually really frustrates me because I'm like, what are you trying to hide?
Honestly, that's also one of the first stages of embracing your ADHD is digging down and just letting yourself be authentic.
Yeah.
Because if you're holding everything in, if you've tightened that box, you've put like a whole roll of tape on it, it's stifling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say it's like the first step of unmasking.
Yeah.
Like, being authentic. The thing is that it's hard to unmask when your whole life you've been masking. And how do you be authentic when you don't know who you are authentically?
Ooh.
It is such a hard hitting feeling of, I don't know what I genuinely enjoy because my whole life I've been doing activities to please other people. Or I don't know who genuinely I am, what my values are, because my values have been dictated by other people.
Mhm.
And I was trying to chameleon, to mask, to blend in, to be safe, to be accepted by the community until I realized I was a part of an ADHD community and I didn't have to do that anymore. But now I don't know who I am because my whole life has been lived for other people.
Can I take this one?
I'm asking the question. Do you have the answer?
I don't know if I have the answer. I have an answer. As someone who has gone through some trauma and had to find their way out of that trauma and been in that exact place you're talking about, which is I don't know where someone else starts, where I begin, and who I truly am. The answer is it took therapy for me. It took a lot of digging down on the self, separating myself from the trauma, separating myself from codependent relationships, but also my own journey of self discovery and meditating on who I am. It took years, but I am so much better off because of it. I don't know if that answers your question.
I love the answer to that question. And if you are seeking this therapy, you should come see me because I actually understand ADHD and use ADHD affirming techniques. I genuinely believe that therapy, coaching, what, Kate, say your statistic on the coaching thing, because that also goes here.
Oh, the Attitude Magazine thing?
While Melissa's pulling this up, we would love to help you. The thing is, these tools exist. And finding the right tools, the right people to help you is really important because if you go to just anyone, they're not going to be able to understand where you're coming from.
According to a recent survey done by Attitude Magazine with over 11,000 adults and caregivers, ADHD coaching is the second most recommended approach for managing ADHD symptoms among adults with ADHD. However, only 17%, so 17% of the 11,000 people in this survey have actually done ADHD coaching, though it's the second most recommended thing to help treat your ADHD. What is that?
It's all connected. I'm going to connect all the dots. If you are struggling with emotion regulation because you are overstimulated, understimulated, losing access to your coping mechanisms, not taking care of yourself, sleep, food, exercise, sunshine, community, like connection to people, and you have these tools available to you, but you're not using them, you have the potential to unmask
Yeah.
and to be authentic and to be your true self, to learn to emotionally regulate, to learn to default to these positive coping mechanisms. Why would you not reach out for the support to do that, to live a better life, to be happier, to be more
Yeah.
authentic?
And to help you do that, one thing that Brianna and I are doing is that we are now both offering something that's called a transitional coaching package for a limited time. We'll each be offering coaching packages. I will leave links in the description below.
You can actually take advantage of some of the things we've been talking about, develop some of the skills. I genuinely believe in therapy, in
Yes.
coaching, in specific assistance for ADHD beyond just a diagnosis. There are tools and resources available. And that's why we've both dedicated our lives, careers to helping, to gaining this knowledge, to be a support system for our community.
And we're doing our best to bring what knowledge we can to you.
I summarized one direction. Shall I
Yeah.
summarize the other direction? The discussion of coping mechanisms, the discussion around how to live your best life. If that's the topic, why is that important? Why is understanding your ADHD triggers and developing healthy coping mechanisms important?
That is part of the key of living a healthier ADHD existence.
It's the goal for everyone. Everyone
Yeah.
wants to have a good quality of life, be happy, be successful. How does that apply to ADHD specifically?
Part of this is recognition. Part of it is recognizing in ourselves that we may have beliefs or negative coping mechanisms that are not serving us anymore. At least for me, this is what I'm getting out of it. I feel like I need to examine what am I doing that's not helping me, that's actually maybe hurting me.
Mhm.
And through that recognition, maybe living a slightly healthier life.
It's important for everyone. Everyone strives to have quality of life, happiness, health, success. But specifically for ADHD, it tends to be a little bit harder to achieve those things because we've been told so many times we're broken or we can't succeed or that type of thing. And it feels harder to grasp that kind of happiness because when you get it, it disappears again. Then you get it back again and you work really hard to get it and then it disappears again. So that the stability of it is really hard to maintain. The specific conversation around ADHD is like, this is a goal that most people want. And then maintaining it is harder for ADHD. So having that conversation around what is going on in
Mhm.
the brain.
And the one thing we mentioned about the positivity, because if we keep trying to reach a goalpost and we just almost get there, and then I'm not going to say for everyone, but for a lot of us, the word that comes up here is failure. If we're failing, that's just going to reinforce all those negative things in our head that we
Yeah,
tell ourselves.
yeah, it reinforces the negative things. It can cause emotion dysregulation
Mhm.
because you're feeling like a failure and the rejection of sensitivity and it sends you into a tailspin. Then you lose your coping mechanisms and your access to your coping mechanisms. You resort back to your default ones, which you have to unlearn if they're negative and replace with positive ones. We've had a whole conversation about how to do this first before explaining the why.
For me, what I'm going to be taking with me today from this conversation, like I said, examining my life, finding those things that aren't serving me anymore, but also honoring myself and giving myself a pat on the back for remaining positive, even when things are really intense. I think it is that positivity that is helping me sustain, even when things have been really stressful.
And that is a neuroplasticity reframe. If you can do that in your brain, that will become the default. Recognizing, adjusting, reframing, and changing your default so this becomes a pattern that is more easily sustainable to help you achieve your goals.
That pattern takes practice.
Practice makes perfect. Practice positive thinking.
Practice recognizing if you do have negative thoughts, use that pause.
Yeah.
Are those thoughts negative? Can you switch it up? Can you shift and say, how is this positive? It may seem really foreign at first.
If you're struggling with it, you can even start with neutral. That's another pro tip. If you can't switch all the way to positive, neutral is a good one. Also, ominous positivity, which I find really fun. So, something like, I will succeed at this or else. Of course, you will succeed. The gods demand it.
I'm putting, of course, you will succeed. The gods demand it on my mirror in the bathroom.
Yeah. So, if you can't just switch to, I'm amazing, I'm so good, everything in my life is going great, because that's hard. That switch is hard. Go to neutral. I did stuff today. There is no I did good, I did bad. I did stuff today.
And
Neutral.
don't be afraid to like physically pat yourself on the back. I'm not lying. There's that whole thing with like the power pose where you stand like Superman to like
Yeah.
give yourself
Power pose.
yeah, whatever mechanism, and maybe it's a fun game.
Do you want to know a thing? Okay. Your brain cannot tell the difference between a fake laugh and a real laugh. If you start like and engage your diaphragm, your brain will eventually think you're laughing and switch over to a real laugh. The game I like to play is how many haws I can get in a row before they break down giggling. It is the fastest way to use neuroplasticity to change your mood.
Can you pair that with music and make it even more
The whole fake it till you make it thing
Yes.
is really real. If you fake a smile, eventually it will become real.
maybe pair that with something that's a fun thought.
Even evil thoughts. Evil thoughts
Oh
are
my
great.
god, you just made my brain go into villain mode. Thanks, Brianna.
This is a goal that is important for ADHDers. What are the tips, right?
Yeah.
The tips are fake it till you make it, use neuroplasticity because it works, recognize and notice when things are starting to get a little bit harder, and that will take practice. Then put your own safety mask on first. Take care of your body, sleep, food. We nailed it. We have tips. We have actionable things at the end.
We were authentic. I think that's a wrap. And did you have fun? And that was actually weirdly fun.
I really enjoyed this episode. I'm so glad that we did something unscripted today because I think we both needed a little bit of fun.
You're right. We both needed some fun.
Subscribe on YouTube. We are both ADHD coaches. As we've learned, it's an underutilized tool, so give it a try.
Be part of the minority of people that think this tool works well for them.
Wait, are you telling people to be the 1%?
Or in this case, the 17%. You can find us at hypercastpod.com. You can find me at likemindcoaching.com. And Brianna,
You can find me at understandingadhd.ca.
thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.